We are continuing the cultural context. So when we read and interpret the Bible, we want to consider the cultural context so we can find real meaning of the Bible, the story or teachings or situations. So unless we're gonna miss lots of things, so we don't want to just read the Bible and just adopt that the words to us living in 21st century. That doesn't make sense. So we want to just try to find real meaning. For that, we need to consider the cultural context. So we are continuing that. As I said, we couldn't finish that last week, so we are continuing the last part of the cultural context and then move on to the next topic. So 3, cultural relevance and present day application. Okay. A, the issue of culture. One of the most important issues Bible interpreters face is the question of the culturally conditioned Bible passages. That is, are some passages of the Bible limited to that day by the culture setting and therefore not transferable to our culture? Or is everything we read in the scriptures normative for today? If some passages are limited, then how do we determine which ones are transferable to our culture and which ones are not? Yeah. So, certain part of the Bible or a book or some books written in long times ago, at least 2,000 years ago, and then we want to just know. It is a saying that we want to just know that teaching, that Bible passages, that book of the Bibles. We just don't want to adopt that to us in living in 21st century. So we want to just know the Bible books, Bible passages. Understand those based on that culture, and then we're gonna just adopt that Bible to us as much as we can, based on what we understood, what we understanding that passages with that book in that culture. But those teachings or those Bible books can be limited there. It stays there, okay? We don't want to adopt that to us, okay? Well, for example, when someone got, made adultery, okay? Then at the time, even when Jesus was there, people were supposed to stone to death. Okay, stone the person to death. That's the judgment. That all people can judge that and penalize that. Kill the person. Usually women. That's the context there. Men make adultery. Women make adultery. All people are cheating. So many things are happening in this world. So, but we don't kill people. We don't kill people by stones. Okay. So that teachings and that law can be limited there. We're not going to adopt that to us. Okay. So we want to understand what kind of happenings, stories, and teachings really happened in that culture, in that setting, and then we can learn something from that. Okay, I mean, the adultery in the Bible a long times ago, and we can learn that we are not supposed to cheat our husbands and wives. Okay, it's not going to be limited to wives. So that's the legal mind. So once we got married, we are not supposed to cheat each other. Okay, that's the teaching, and that is really serious, serious sin. That's why even Ten Commandments has have that law. Okay, do not make adultery. Okay, so but we don't keep people who cheated by storms. That's why we have to. So we instead of stoning those people to death, we just um, just sue that kind of adultery people, whether they are women or men. Okay, there is no discrimination today. Okay, they they had discrimination long times ago. Okay, even they didn't count women. Actually, that happened to the United States, and it's just a few. I think it's about 50 or 60 years. It's been 60 years or 50 years that we just allowed women to vote, even in the United States. Okay, so we want to understand what really happened on the basis of the culture, and we have to accept that and understand that some Bible teachings can be limited to be transferred to us. Okay, but we have to understand the legal mind, why that happened, what kind of teachings we can accept in this country, in this century. Okay. The options. There are three ways to approach this issue of culture and present day application. Number one, modify the scripture's principle and the behavioral command which expresses that principle in light of historical changes. For example, according to this view, the commands that women should not teach or exercise authority over men, or that women should be subject to their husbands, should be rejected because we now live in an egalitarian society. Egalitarian society. We just think and accept and practice men and women are equal. I know still there are limitations. And still men are thinking women are inferior or women are limited. Okay? Still, some women are taking those views as granted. Okay? So that is kind of a problem in this century too. Okay? It depends on cultures and nations and countries and tribes. There are some discriminations and there are some limitations and there are some different roles and status. Okay? They do that because they feel comfortable. They do that for their survival. they do that for their identity. They do that for their security. You know. But basically, we are thinking that men and women are equal. Okay, men and women are equal. Um, but but there are some limitations still. I don't like it. Well, I'm not a feminist, but I think men and women are equal. There is no difference. Why there? Why? Why do I think there are some differences? There are some differences, but there are no limitations with it. You know, hierarchical wise or status wise, you know, their ability wise. Actually, there are way smarter women in this world than men. Men, you know, there are stupid men. I'm kind of stupid too. Lots of stupid men. Okay, there are lots of smart women. Okay, I'm not saying that women are more smarter than guys. Some women are. You know, they are smarter than guys. But there are men smarter than women too. Okay. So anyway, we are living in egalitarian society. But can Americans can we say we are living in egalitarian society? We are saying that. We are pretending that. Okay. But there are still limitations. There are still, not equal. So that's why women are fighting for that, and I think guys have to know. And then this society is still, it's changing slowly, one by one. So eventually we can live in the equal society, I think, right? So we cannot, criticize other countries and nations because they have their own reasons. So when, well, there are some reasons, but anyway, we have to try to, be equal, I think. So I think that's the way we can have healthier society in this country, at least. Okay, but we are, we have many things to do for that still. It's not perfect yet. We are not perfect, and I don't know what is perfect, but we have to work on for the better society, for the better egalitarian society. Okay. So, those teachings written on 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 12 and Ephesians chapter 5 verse 2 can be reviewed by readers and interpreters, because we don't want to just adopt that to our society. Okay, women are supposed to teach men. Well, we have lots of women teachers, especially in the elementary. Okay, right? We lots of women are teaching. There are women pastors in most denominations. Okay, there are many women politicians. Okay, some countries have women president. Okay, there are lots of women professors in many colleges. Women are teaching guys, the boys. Okay, So we know that we are not supposed to adopt those teachings to us, but we have to understand those teachings on the basis of that culture, not this culture. Okay, it's kind of stupid and ridiculous to adopt all the teachings in the Bible to us right away without understanding that culture. The reason why writers wrote that, the reason why the Holy Spirit inspired those writers to write those stuff. Okay, without understanding how we can adapt those things to us. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. You're gonna wear what they wore. You're gonna eat what they ate. Right? It's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's their culture. And Israel's culture and Jewish culture, that was just a little part, a little tiny part in the whole world at the time. And they didn't have advanced culture compared to Rome, Italy today, right? They didn't have, more advanced culture and governing systems or social systems than other countries. Some countries. Babylonia, Assyria, Rome. So we want to understand what really happened. Because Jesus came to this earth as Israel, one of the Israelites, and one of the Jews, we are not thinking all Jews and Israel's stuff are the most great. That's not. It's not. Jewish people are great. Nowadays, and they have powers in economics and politics, and they are very smart, and they got educated, as smart. I understand and I accept that, but because those Bible books were written by Jewish people, Israelites, they are the best, and no, they didn't. They were not. But we want to understand why God inspired those writers to write those stuff, and we want to understand what really happened in Israel, so we can understand God. Not okay, and we want to understand God's teachings, and we want to understand what God really wants us to do today. That is more important. Okay, so some are have to be limited to be transferred to this century. Okay, so it is very important to understand the cultural context. All right. Second, observe the scripture principle and always abide by the accompanying behavioral commands. Okay, understand the scriptural principle, okay, and behavioral commands. Okay, know and the command to do. Thus, the command to greet one another with a holy kiss, mentioned 5 times in the New Testament, should be observed. That was the part of way of greetings for the first churches. Okay, right after Jesus died, should be observed in principle and in practice. However, the behavioral commands of biblical times do not always carry the same meaning in other cultures in other eras. Are you supposed to kiss for greeting in Korea? No. There's no way. That's a sexual assault. They can't. They don't allow other guys kiss their wives. No, no. You know, greeting with kissing can be acceptable in France. I don't know in England. Okay? You know, kind of kissing on the cheek. It's not gonna be mouth to mouth. No way, even in France. Okay? Just kissing on the cheeks. That's what they do. So they don't have any problem. They can, you know, greeting each other by kissing in their churches in France. Well, other countries like Korea, Japan, China, no. Most Asians don't kiss when they greet people. Okay, right? They don't even actually. They used to not shake their hands. You know, as you know, shaking hands is kind of a Western culture, American culture. So that means I don't have my gun. I'm not fighting with you, okay? Because they just pull their guns and shoot each other and kill each other, right? And so when they just stretch out their empty hands, no guns in their hands, means I have no problem with you, okay? I'm just reading. Well, there can be some leftists when they shake and shoot each other. You know, I just watched that in some movies, but usually when they just shake their hands, that means peace. So it's kind of a Western culture, but Asians don't. They used to not shake their hands, but they just bow. You know, cause of physical contact. That's kind of not, you know, comfortable with each other because they have to keep some certain distance, not because of the COVID, but they're old culture, so they just keep the distance and bow each other or just, you know, bow each other like this in Thailand. So when you just try to shake hands with people in many countries in Asia, you're gonna offend those people. You wanna just grab and touch their hands so you can just try to greet, I don't know. But you have to learn their cultures before you visit other countries, because without that you're gonna be, you know, offended them. And that's actually basic ethics, right? That's a basic. You have to understand other cultures before you visit there. Because America is the, you know, the most wealthiest country in this world. That does not mean that you can do whatever you want to do in other countries. No, you're gonna be stupid. You're gonna offend those people. You have to respect other cultures and countries when you travel other countries. Okay. Even in Asia, in most Asian countries, well, many things are changing, but still, even in Asia, their neighbor guys or other guys are not supposed to, you know, stretch their hands for shaking to women. Okay, or you just touch the hands, not shaking their hand instead of shaking hands. That's offending. It's sexual harassment. Okay, so you have to be careful. Don't think that what we are doing is the normal and standard. No, not at all. It's okay in this country, in this culture. It can be wrong in other cultures, and we cannot judge other cultures are wrong. No, there are differences. There are differences. When we think that way, most other countries can think we are wrong. We don't want to be judged that way, right? So we don't want to judge others that way too. Be smart. Be respect. Okay? You respect others. Don't be arrogant. You're not the best. Not at all. Think you can be the best because you are the richest, wealthiest, you're the strongest. God doesn't want us to do. Okay, it's not Christian way. That's the illiterate way. Be careful, be careful. Same to this, same to this. Okay. So greet one another with a holy kiss. I don't know what really happened. There are many interpretations and but I don't know what really they did. Holy kiss means kissing on their hands or whatever, I had a great chance to join to a Greek Orthodox service. I think a few years ago, because I just wanted to sit in the service for learning and for just joining to their service. So I just wondered, and everything was, kind of different to the Protestant. Well, the most kind of frustrated thing for me was lying at the end of the, I think, excuse me, that's the part of the service or not, but the last thing in the service was lining up. So the priest was holding a metal cross, and people, I couldn't see that actually, because I was eager to see what they are doing. So I had to do that, okay? Because I wanted to do that, because I don't want to miss the last thing, and eventually I just watched closely what people are doing. So they just stand in front of the priest and kiss on the priest's hands and kiss on the cross. I don't know which one is the first, but kissing on the cross must be the first, and then kissing on the priest's hand. I was about to kiss the cross, but the metal, golden color, the cross was shining, but there were lots of lip marks, even lipstick marks, red and pink and orange or something like that. And I was about to kiss the cross. It was disgusting to me. Cross is great, but I don't want to kiss on the kissing mark of others. That looks dirty. That was disgusting to me. Even though I can think those Christians, but oh my goodness, do you think you can drink a cup of water or juice or wine when about 40 people used and lots of lip marks on the glass? You're gonna vomit. You're gonna throw up. I would throw up. So I was kind of, oh, that's what people are doing. But I was about to kiss the cross. Oh my goodness, that's disgusting. But so I just pretended that I kissed. And then I just move on to the priest's hand. But that's the same thing. Because the priest's hand was messed up with lots of lip marks, especially the women, because they just use lipsticks, right? And my goodness, that's kind of disgusting. So I just pretended that I just touched my nose and on the prince's hand instead of my lips, because it's disgusting. I can wipe up my nose, but lips, oh my goodness. Just kiss on it there and then clean my lips with my, no. So that was kind of a horrible experience for me, but they love to do that at the last of the service. I don't know, that is the holy kiss. So that was a holy kiss for those people, but I wasn't a part of that the church. So and then that was the first experience for me. So I'm still feeling disgusting because so I don't want to just see the Greek Orthodox Church, and everything was great, but that one was really disgusting. Sorry for that, but if you are part of the Greek Orthodox, I'm sorry for that, but people can feel differently. Okay, it's great for you. It's not good for me. Okay, please forgive me to say that. But anyway, that's the same thing. Observe the scriptural principle. Always about the companion behavior commands. 3. Observe the scriptural principle and either keep the biblical expression described, or if the biblical expression does not carry the same meaning today, look for a way that principle can properly be expressed in one's own culture. Okay. Yeah, I'm just feeling that I want to provide something. Okay. All right. It's the Bible written in the culture. Sorry for that. Culture, and this is the Bible. Okay? Bible writers, okay? Bible writers, and there are lots of people. Okay? That's Bible. But we are living in 21st century. Okay? We are reading the Bible. So when we read, we want to understand the Bible. We want to understand the writers. We want to understand the people. We want to understand the culture. Okay? So, and then we can practice certain things. Okay? Alright? So we can get those things from there and we can apply to those in our lives. Okay? So, but there are some teachings we can directly adopt. For example, love your God. Okay? We don't have to interpret that. Love your God. Simple. Just love your God. Okay? Love your God. What interpretation we need more for that? Okay? Simple. Alright? So do not steal others' property. Simple! We can just adopt that to our lives right away. Okay? But as I said, stoned to death. Penalty, we wanna just have cultural filter and adapt that to our lives. Okay, but we need interpretation. Stoned to death. That's the Bible. We don't want to just use it directly. You just see adultery people and kill by stone. You got in trouble. You go to prison. Okay, that's a homicide. Okay, it's a felony. First degree felony, homicide. I guarantee that you're gonna go to prison and live there until you die. I think maybe 20, 30 years, 40 years, 100 years prison. Okay, something like that. All right, C. Principles to determine relevance for today. Okay, how we can determine what teachings are relevant, okay for today. Number one, if a command or principle that pertains to a theological or moral subject is not revoked, it is permanent and transferable to us. When the Bible clearly gives a command and nowhere else nullifies that command, it must be accepted as the revealed will of God. Love your God, love your mother, love your father. Okay? Do not falsely testify to others, against others. Which means when you are in a court as a witness, just tell the truth. Don't try to make wrong testify for what you've seen, what you saw, what you heard. Okay? Just be honest and just deliver all those things what you experienced, what you know, as it is in the court. But that's not limited to the court, but as a writers, as reporters, you have to deliver right things. Okay? You don't want to utilize what you experienced, what you know, what you saw, what you interviewed as a political way. You got in trouble. You are violating one of the 10 Commandments. You know what you are doing actually. Maybe you cannot know what you are doing because you are brainwashed, because you are in the water, in the same water. Okay? You are living in the limited world, so you cannot see others. Okay? I understand that because people can be limited. I can be limited and I can be opinionated. And all people are opinionated. So I understand you. But as reporters, as one of the broadcasters and YouTubers, there are so many YouTubers that delivering news and political things or something like that. So many crazy people. And be careful. You are not supposed to do that way. Wrong, fake, biased. Just to follow your conscience and just think one more time what God wants to do. Okay? That's violating. So don't do that. But if the command is clearly theological, love your God, love your neighbor. Simple. Okay? Keep the Sabbath. So in the 10 Commandments, Sabbath in Jewish time, starts from Friday evening and it ends Sunday. I mean Saturday. But what is the Sabbath for Protestants? Sunday. Sunday is the day Jesus got resurrected. So we are celebrating Sunday. And when we read the Bible, God worked, created and whole this universe. Actually, what we know for 6 days, and He took a rest on seventh day. So we are taking off on seventh day, Sunday. Okay. So there is no problem when we just adopt those theological teachings, God's teachings to us, but some can be limited. But those are very easy for us to determine those things, those theological teachings and moral subject is quite clear for us to keep, adopt directly to us in 21st century. So there's no problem at all. Right? It's relevant. Hey, not revoked. Capital punishment, being baptized, observing Lord's Supper, loving God and neighbor, those are not revoked. So we can adopt that right away to us. Okay? Capital punishment. Being baptized. That's what Jesus ordered, actually. Observing Lord's Supper. That's what Jesus started, and He made that ritual or ceremony. So there is no problem. We just adopted that Lord's Supper to us. So some denominations like Lutherans, SMS, they just practicing that every Sunday, and that's very important part of their services. And that is very holy communion. So it deserves to be kept. Okay? Loving God and neighbor. Isn't it easy to adopt it? It's not revoked. God never told us that, don't love me and don't love your neighbor. Right? So that's easy for us to adopt it. That's not revoked. But there are some revoked things. Number one, the Mosaic law. The law was the rule of life for Israel in the Old Testament. Okay? I think the Ten Commandments can be adopted to, it's not revoked. So that's very general 10 Commandments, very important 10 Commandments. So it's kind of a universal law, I think. We can accept those and practice that. And most law books are keeping that spirit, that teachings, because it's very universal, Worship God and keep the Sabbaths. And those things can be a little bit different, depends on the cultures and countries and nations, but basically, people have religions that they have, and they just respect that. And especially the rest 6 commandments for people, those are very important and crucial for people to keep it. So most countries and nations and people are keeping that. And when they see those violations, even they don't know those rules or commandments, they think that is wrong. When they see, people are disrespecting their parents, all people can think that is wrong. Okay? And stealing others' stuff is wrong. That's universal law. Okay. But the New Testament is clear that with the death of Christ, the law has been revoked. Okay? So, I mean, especially in Leviticus, it's filled with lots of laws and principles. Because that's what God gave to Israelites. Israelites were slaves for hundreds of years under Egyptians, under Egypt, right? They were slaves. Some people are thinking that, saying that Israelites were slaves for, to Egyptians, so they just built the pyramids. I don't know, and I don't think so too. Who can adopt slaves' ideas to their work? Maybe they just had some, help from the slaves, and they can just, say, "Oh, it can be right." Do you think when you have thousands and hundreds, thousands slaves, do you think you're gonna just listen to those people? You can find some clever people, but for designing, for thinking what you wanna build, like pyramids, you have your own ideas for that already, right? So it's kind of hard for me to take, I think all the Egyptians can get, the idea of pyramids 100% from Israelites. I don't think so. I don't know. Anyway, they were slaves for Egyptians. So when they got Exodus, they are supposed to have their own nation and kind of a country, right? They haven't founded it for 40 years because they violated God's word. Okay, in the wilderness. So they just hang around for 40 years. Instead of 15 days to walk there. Can you imagine that? You can walk up there to the promised land in 15 days, but you just hang around in the wilderness for 40 years because you violated that God's word. That's miserable. That's miserable, right? Anyway, after the Exodus, those were all slaves. Those were all slaves. They were born as slaves, and they just lived as slaves, and they just gave birth to their kids as the slaves. Do you think what the spirit of slaves? Can you imagine what kind of spirits of people colonized by other countries for many years? Can you imagine what kind of spirits and ideas and things and emotions and knowledges and wisdoms they had after many hundred years of slavery life and generations? They didn't have anything. Moses was the only educated person, educated by Egyptians, the palace. Moses was not chosen because of it. I don't know. Anyway, God chose the person. I think He chose the right person. Because I don't know, God can change anybody, as leaders out of slaves, but anyway, God chose Moses. In general, people can think that slaves they were born slaves, and their fathers and mothers and grandfathers and grandmothers and their grandfathers, and those are all slaves, and they didn't have any life as independent person but slaves, because they are born to be, from top to the bottom they are whole slaves, and they are living in slavery culture, for 400 years. After that, God taught their people, Israelites, from A to Z. From A to Z. So he just started that nation from all the beginning. Okay? So he gave all the rules and policies and laws. Those are all written in Leviticus, in the Old Testament. Okay? But those are for those people. So those are for those people, not for us. We can learn some legal mind. Why gave those rules to those people? So we can adopt that legal mind to us, but we don't want to keep all of those rules and laws to us directly. No one wants to do that. Maybe some people, maybe very little people want to keep those rules and laws, but most of Christians don't want to keep it. We want to adopt that legal one, because that is important. Because that was God's teaching. Okay, so clear. So those things for those people, not general, like do not steal others, love your God, love your neighbor, but you do this, you do that. When you got skin problem, show that to your priest. When you have a skin problem, do you show that to your pastors? No. You go to hospital. You show that to your doctors, right? Same thing. So those are revoked. So second revoked one is long hair for men under the Nazareth vow. Men were allowed to grow long hair as a sign of a dedication to the Lord. Okay? Nowadays, people can have a freedom to grow their hair. I have a short hair because I've been cutting my hair since 1995. So it's been 30 years, almost 30 years, right? Almost 30 years. I've been cutting my hair for 30 years because I was taking mission training at the time in Hawaii, and I couldn't find the right barber or hairdresser because I just stopped in hair salon, and a woman hairdresser just cut my hair, and it was horrible. So I just bought hair clippers from Walmart, and I just cut my hair like this today, and I just tried many times to cut my hair with the hair clippers. So I became, I was okay. So I used to cut my hair, and I still cutting my son's hair because it's COVID and he has nowhere to go. So I'm just cutting my son's hair. I did that a few days ago again, and I just go. I'm just just cutting my hair like this short because I'm just got tired with hair drying in the morning because I'm losing lots of my hair as you can see, and I don't find the right size, and I got tired with the hair things because I'm losing lots of hair. It's pretty hard for me to style my hairs because of no hairs. So my hair is kind of thin and losing, so I just decided to cut my hair like this. So simple. I'm just cutting my hair every 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, every 2 weeks, just a short like this. I'm about to cut my hair tomorrow. It's kind of long right now. Okay? That means that I'm not dedicating my life to God. No, it's different. Then, do you think the heavy metal singers they are Christians, but they dedicated their life to God because they got long hair? No. Okay, so long hair. Even 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14 states that if a man has long hair, it is dishonor to him. So those are revoked. The Old Testament and the New Testament is different. Number 3, unclean food. The dietary restrictions of Leviticus chapter 11 have been revoked by the clear testimony of Mark 7:19. He declared all foods clean. In Acts 10:9-16. According to the Old Testament, we are not supposed to eat pork. But we are eating. All Christians and pastors, priests, they all are eating pork. Depends on their appetite. Some vegetarians we have though. Okay? The New Testament, especially the Mark 7 or Acts 10. Well, some Christians can think that you can, especially the Acts 10, when Peter saw a bunch of, banned animals, banned meat, and God said, you can eat it, I cleaned it. You cannot say it's not clean because I cleaned them. I said clean them. That means, that's Gentiles. Well, I can think that way too. But anyway, no matter what, we eat everything. Christians eat many things. We have freedom to eat many things. But basically, we can eat, we can not eat. Right? We can choose our food, whatever we want. It's free, I think. Okay? When I eat pork, I'm not thinking that I'm violating the Old Testament. I'm not violating God's word. I'm not violating God's legal mind in the Old Testament and New Testament. Okay? But when you feel that, when you feel so, you don't have to eat it. Okay? But you cannot judge others alone. Because basically we are free to eat this and that. And those food are limited in Israelites like 3,000 or 4,000 years ago in Israel. In that land, okay? In that land. I don't know. When Jesus came down to Korea, maybe God just, banned to eat kimchi. All right. Number two, if a situation, principle or command is given to an individual in a normal and non-moral or non-theological setting, it is not transferable to today. Okay, if that is spoken to Peter, that was for Peter. It's not for me. Okay, you can adopt the Spirit, but you don't have to adopt that to you, to Christians, because that's what Jesus has spoken to certain person. Number three, some commands, and that can be revoked. Some commands and experiences were applicable to certain people at a unique period of time and not applicable to today. Okay, Paul's being called up to the third heaven. Paul's experience is nowhere said to be normative for today. Well, some people are claiming that they were in heaven, Well, I can think if they are telling the truth, I think that is acceptable. Okay? Why not? That's what Paul experienced. We can experience that. As long as God allows us to do, okay? We cannot limit God's work. We cannot limit God's power. We cannot limit a Christian's experience, but I cannot accept those things actually. But if they are saying they're wrong way on the basis of the Bible, because we have standard Bible, we have nothing else but Bible. In Christian traditions, so we can just think about and examine whether that is right or wrong. Depends on, based on the Bible and Christian traditions and histories. Okay, that's all we have actually. Okay, but that is limited to Paul. So no one can say, if you don't experience the third heaven, you are not real genuine Christian. that's ridiculous. That kind of mistakes were happened in Korea. I don't know what happened in other countries, because a certain group, especially the Pentecostal group in Korea in 1970s, 60s, they claimed that if you don't speak tongues, you are not genuine spirit. So you don't have a spirit or something like that. So, speaking tongue is one of the gifts, not have to gifts for Christians. Right? Do you have all gifts God can give people in the Testaments, Old Testaments and New Testaments? Then you can be saved and you are the genuine Christians. God can give us certain talents and gifts, spiritual gifts. Not all, okay? Not all. We are not saying at all. Okay? Number four, some situations or commands pertain to cultural settings that are only partially similar to. By the way, the Pentecostal church, they don't claim that anymore, right? It's not have trying for to be saved and have eternal life at all. Okay, four, so that is revoked, because that was for certain people. Number four, some situations or commands pertain to cultural settings that are only partially similar to ours, and in which only the principles are transferable. If the behavior prescribed in the Bible means something different in our culture, use the behavioral expression that best expresses that principle, okay? Praying for kings. These passages tell us to pray for kings, but what about believers who do not live under a king? Okay, what if you don't have a king? In Canada, They don't have a king, right? They have a prime minister only, I think. That was colonized by England, and they think, you know, I think it is ridiculous. How ridiculous! Still, you know, some countries are colonizing other countries. This is what happened recently. You know, France was, I think, I don't know what happened, but I guess France colonized lots of African territories in Africa, and France military got misunderstood, you know. So what's happening? So they killed all the people uh, in a wedding ceremony. They killed everybody there because they were thinking that those were terrorists or something. They misunderstood them. They killed them. Uh, European country, France can kill. That's what happened in Mali, Africa. A country still, they can kill people. Do you think that is acceptable in 21st century? But still, some countries are doing that nasty things. That's not right. Do you think colonizing is acceptable in 21st centuries? But those countries are, some countries are still doing that. I don't want to say, you know, my country is doing that because, you know, I'm living in the United States. If we do that, we need to be careful. We need to think it again. We are supposed to, you know, this country I'm living in, I'm citizen in the United States. This country has to think carefully. We are actually helping others and helping other countries for peace. We don't colonize other countries. We don't have to. We are not supposed to do, and we can't because of the human rights. We are not working for our own human rights, but we are supposed to work for others' human rights too. Okay? We have to desperately work for our peace in this country, America, but at the same time, we have to work for others' peace, other countries' peace. That's what we have to. We don't have to colonize and manipulate others, other countries, other nations, other people. That's violating God's words. It's against God's words. That's against the Bible. Do not think, the Christians in the United States do not think and accept and allow and take it granted, you know, when our country is doing something nasty things in other places. We proud our troops and military people, officers in our government, because we are believing that you know, they are working for the peace for ourselves and other people, countries, nations. So I honor our military people. And I'm proud of them. Because I'm proud of them, I don't want this government, you know, have our military people to do something wrong. To do something wrong against the Bible. Okay? Pray for kings. You don't have a king, you don't pray for your king. Canada has a prime minister, their king, they don't have a king. The England king is not their king, so they don't pray for Elizabeth. It's ridiculous. The principles for determining whether Bible commands are culture bound or transcultural. Number one, discern as accurately as possible the principle behind the given behavioral command. Number two, discern whether the principle is timeless or time bound. Three, if a principle is a transcultural, study the nature of its behavioral application within our culture. All right. Number four, if the behavioral expression of principle should be changed, such as the cultural equivalent that would adequately express the God-given principle behind the original command. For example, handshake in place of a holy kiss. Yeah, that's why we mentioned that's revoked. Number five, we have to carefully study the nature of the biblical principle and its attendant command, remain in question, apply the biblical principle of humility. Okay? So that's the end of the cultural context. So we wanna understand the Bible, the writers, and those people, and that culture, and we can understand God's legal mind, God's spirit, so we can carefully choose to adopt those things to us in 21st century. Without screening work for that, we got in trouble because we're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna make misunderstandings. And we're gonna teach people wrong. So we have to be careful when we study Bible. Okay, that's all we have to consider in this session, considering the cultural context. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next thing. In the next week is the interpreting.